So tonight was the first night of the NFL draft for the 49ers. Pick 31. Our month and probably the months before that, right? About if Brandon Ayuk was going to get traded, right? They haven't paid him yet. There's going to be a turning point with this roster in which someone has to be traded. And some people thought Brandon Ayuk would be that guy, right? But today there was talk about Deebo Samuel being that guy. And then both of Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel were on the trade block. And with how this draft went tonight, neither were dealt to a different team for a mid-round pick. No, the 49ers stayed put in a draft that, I think went, how they probably wanted it to go. They basically had their choice of anyone they wanted besides for offensive linemen. Don't even get me started on their philosophies there with drafting offensive linemen. But their board probably went the way they thought it would go. And they drafted Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall or Pearsall. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's going to be something I need to learn because this guy is a 49er. And I have a lot of thoughts on this, right? There's a lot of thoughts going about could they have waited? Could they have traded down and still get this guy? Could they have, I don't know, done something else? Could they have went defensive first? Because, there were some good DBs. There was a good safety available. There was a good cornerback available still to be picked. There was still some defensive linemen out there that they could have picked. But if there's one thing that I should know about the 49ers now and should have always known about this regime is that they pick the players that they like. They don't care about consensus. And yeah, that's how the night ends. So let's get into it, right? But first off, let's roll that intro. Guys, Dawson and Shard here once again for another 49ers video. I thought about doing night one because instead of my usual take of putting all the picks together and just talking about them together, because of this was a shock. I'll say that, right? I know some 49ers content creators have floated the idea of Ricky being a 49er. But, I never paid attention to that. I thought there was more pressing needs. I thought if they were going to draft a wide receiver, which I understand why they drafted a wide receiver, I would have thought it'd be a second-round pick, day 2 pick. But they went wide receiver, 31st pick. And let's talk about this wide receiver that they picked here. Let me just get... So, Pearsall. 6 foot 1 inches, 191 pounds. 4.41 40-yard dash. Had a good 3-cone drill. 3 seasons at Arizona State. He was teammates with Brandon Ayuk. And then he played at Florida for the Florida Gators. He played 55 games, 34 starts, 159 catches, 2,420 yards, and 14 touchdowns. He was the 45th ranked player on a lot of mock drafts boards. And yes, as I said, this was a reach. I think it was a reach, but as the 49ers themselves says here, right? Let's talk about the 2023 season real quick because I got those stats right. He led the team in receptions for Florida, receiving yards per game. 41 of his catches were first down, 35 for double digits, and 6 touchdowns last year. And also with rushing, 3 carries for. Oh wait, 2 of those touchdowns were rushing. 3 carries, 62 yards. 11 punts returned for 126 yards, average of 11.45 per attempt. So with all that information, and this guy will probably be getting playing time this year from the 49ers because they need a punt returner. So there's that. And let me. How do I talk about this, right? As I stated before, I think this was a reach. I think they could have gotten this guy day 2. I don't know what information they got from other teams that thought that, hey, they couldn't trade up to get this guy, but I honestly think they could have traded up. Traded down to get the guy. And I think it's a the point I'm trying to make here is this, right? I think there's a bunch of issues with the core of this 49ers team. And the biggest concern, right, I would think for this team is defense and offensive line. I think there was, your safeties. You need someone to go. I like Jair Brown. And he's great, right? Don't get me wrong, he's great. But Talanoa Hufunga's coming off an injury. Tayshaun Gibson's not here. Logan Ryan's not here. There was a need for safety there, and there was a safety available in Cooper Dewan, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He plays safety. He was available at that pick. A lot of reporters thought he was originally the pick, but they got their sources wrong there. And for the few seconds that Cooper DeJean was the pick for the 49ers, I was like, great, that's the best pick available, in my opinion. Or it could have been Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? Just a defensive pick would have made sense there because, as I said before, the secondary issue was offensive line, and all the first-round offensive line talent was taken. But they went wide receiver, right? And as I said before, they needed a punt returner. Great, right? But also, this is a pick more for the future of this 49ers team, right? As I said before, as if you didn't know this already, right? Deebo Samuel has 2 years left. Juwan is playing on a 1-year deal. Brandon Ayuk has not been paid. They need wide receiver depth besides Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray, and who I forget who else is on this roster, wide receiver depth, because you shouldn't know who's the rest of this wide receiver depth besides people who have played. So, as I'm rambling here, this is a pick for the future and maybe a pick for now in a sense, because Mike Silver stated that they may still trade Deebo Samuel. That is still on the table for this team. And I think that's a bit insane from the 49ers to think about trading Deebo Samuel. I understand the cap hit and you got to potentially trade him away once you have to go and pay Deebo Samuel. But here's the thing about it. This ain't the year to trade Deebo Samuel. If you are truly in win now mode, you are trying to get the best team available to get back to the Super Bowl and try again before you have to dismantle this core. Why is your first opinion or your first thought process is to trade Deebo Samuel, right? He's your heartbeat of your team. He's he's basically the mascot for this team. He is what Kyle Shanahan looks in a player. And I know some people say, well, CMC has taken that place, but still, Deebo Samuel is, very vital to this offense. We saw how vital he was last year when he was injured and they lost those games. So it's just a very interesting situation to still think about trading Deebo Samuel this year. I'm not saying they shouldn't trade Deebo Samuel after, say, this year, right? I'm fully down for that, but thinking this year, you can trust Brandon Ayuk if you pay him, right? Jawan Jennings on a 1-year deal. And Ronnie Bell and the rookie, Ricky Pearsall, to help run this offense while CMC and George Kittle, help out, right? I don't know if that's the right choice, because the best thing about the 49ers, right, last year was they didn't have many health issues, and who knows if that's going to repeat for this year. I think you need to be greedy and have as many offensive weapons as possible, and that's why I don't like the pick, but I understand why they picked Ricky Pearsall, because they want as many weapons as possible. Because hey, maybe they do want a guy who can take Debo snaps more. That was something. What was his name? Dang, I forget his name. But the last punt returner that the 49ers had, he was supposed to be able to, besides for punt returns, be able to take some Debo reps, and that never, happened. As anticipated, they fed Debo when Debo was healthy. They did not let anyone else try and take those snaps, because they would have messed up. But this is the guy the 49ers trust, right? This is a red. This ain't a red shirt because he's probably gonna be your punt returner this year, but he is supposed to be here to be another gadget guy, another guy who can, if you want some more speed instead of Juwan Jennings out there on third downs, or just in general, if you want more speed. That's the thing about it. I don't really hate this pick, right? If you really wanted a guy like this, Ladin McConkey was still out there, but they like Ricky Pearsall's skill set more. That's all I can say. Then if the 49ers like your skill set more, they will draft you. So, yes, very interesting situation for the 49ers. If tonight taught me anything, it doesn't matter what issues you could have or who's available. If they like you, they will draft you. Just like when they traded DeForest Buckner and drafted Kinlaw, and I'm not hating on Kinlaw when I say this, but the guy had bad knees already and had health concerns, and guess what? He had health concerns his entire time as a San Francisco 49er, besides for his last year. So it's just another confusing night for the draft night for the 49ers. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to know how the rest of this draft goes, right? I think that's the most interesting thing with the 49ers, right? The early rounds don't really gel that much, but as you go layering around and you get more and this team gets, their magic, they get more steals in this draft, and maybe this looks like a better draft, but just thinking about the situation, I don't really understand. And here's the thing about it, if they can still get a defensive back and an old lineman that they like, then my opinion of tonight changes. But until we see more of what this team drafts, then tonight was, I think, a disappointment. I will say this. The night one of the draft for the 49ers was a disappointment, because I think they could have done more, right? If they really like Ricky Pearsall, then why not, trade up for him? Because you can't, I don't think all these picks are making the roster. So you could have traded up, or you could trade down and get more picks, right? If you knew that there was probably wide receivers that would have been picked before Ricky. It's just a situation that I think the 49ers did not handle well, when it pretty much seemed like the draft board was in the perfect place to get yourself a defensive back, either a safety or a cornerback. So, very interesting situation for the 49ers. I'm going to be covering every other draft night for them to see if my opinion changes of how the 49ers are doing this draft season. So this has been Dawson and Charlotte. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, comment. I enjoy making these videos, and I will keep on making these videos. So, I will see you guys next time.